Let's take a look at some pretty simple mods or accessories for the Toyota Tacoma, some that are actually functional and some that are just aesthetic. These are things that you can add yourself. Certainly you wouldn't pay anybody to do any of these. And it's kind of a way to get your feet wet, I guess, if you're looking to maybe personalize the truck a little bit while improving some things too. First of all, it doesn't matter whether or not you have a 4th generation Tacoma or a 1st generation Tacoma. As long as these things fit, you can put them on any Toyota Tacoma. Number one, the blind spot monitor mirror. This thing is a must-have, I think, in the Tacoma, simply because of the size of the truck, if you care about what you're running up against. Like when you're at the Starbucks or the McDonald's drive-through or whatever, you want to be able to see when you're pulling around those curbs. You take a look when you go next time and see how much black you see scraped on those curbs. That's because people can't see where they're going. What this is, it's pretty simple. It's a stick-on application. You just put it on the mirror, really wherever you want. I would caution you though, if you have monitoring or alerts that come up like I do right here, obviously you wouldn't want to cover that little area that lights up with this mirror. That's why I put mine where I did. This one is cool because it rotates. It's curved, so you can rotate it on its own holder, if you will, to get it where you want, to be able to see down the side of the truck. It's great, as I mentioned, for protecting wheels and tires, and even seeing if you're backing up against anything like maybe the corner of your garage. Pretty cheap mod too, and obviously one you can do yourself in just a few minutes. Next up, number two, seat stuffers. What I'm talking about, they're this kind of thing right here. They hook over your seat belt inside the cab, and they take up that space in between the seat and the center console. I'll show you here the ones that I have. Before anybody asks, they were sent to me by a subscriber years ago. I don't believe you can get them anymore, but they came from eBay, so if you want to check, you might find them there. I'm not sure. This is where mine are. They're just tucked right down in here, and what I'm talking about, you can't get them anymore, is they have the Toyota logo on them as well as the Toyota word, I guess. But they just hook over the seat belt right here, very simple, and they take up this gap. You know, it's a pretty good gap. I mean, if you look at the size of this here, you can easily drop your keys, a cell phone, your wallet, who knows, whatever might fit in between the seats, and then you get to dig around underneath trying to find it. This way, whatever I have that might fall just stops right there. It's not going to go anywhere. It's one of those handy little things. I love the looks of mine because they do have the Toyota badge and wording on them. But again, it's one of those functional mods that's going to save stuff from flying underneath the seat. Next up, the bed mat. Now, in my truck, I of course adapted one from the 3rd gen because it doesn't fit the 4th gen, but nonetheless, it protects the bed if you're concerned about scraping up your composite bed. And if you didn't know, the Toyota Tacoma has a composite plastic bed. Mine happens to be sprayed, I guess. Not really sure why they do that in this truck. It doesn't really add anything, I don't think, other than maybe an aesthetic appeal. It's shinier. But other than that, I guess you'd get some protection for scraping and stuff, but this is just a coating. I mean, if you've got something sharp enough that's going to scrape your composite bed, it's going to scrape this stuff off as well. The big benefit of having a mat in here, in my opinion, is keeping things put. This bed, even though with the spray-in liner it's kind of textured, as you can see, is still slippery. Things will fly all over inside of the bed, like coolers or anything else that you might be hauling. This provides a little bit of stickiness to it, if you will. It's going to keep stuff from slipping and sliding all over the place, as well as, I mentioned, adding some protection to the bed itself. There are tons of them available out there. You can buy an OEM bed mat for quite a bit more money. It's going to say Tacoma on it probably, maybe Toyota, who knows, depends on what you find. But there's also a ton of aftermarket versions out there. I would highly recommend going with an aftermarket version. You really don't need to spend all the money for an OEM style. Next up, the door handle film. This is something that I never really thought about it until I was offered this product when I was at a tenor. I had them go ahead and do it, and now it's a must-have for me. I'm talking about this little film area right inside the door handle. Now, the purpose of it, fingernails, scratches. You know, whenever you open the doors, you're gonna hit that spot, right? And your fingernails are pretty darn abrasive. I've seen vehicles where these are scratched up like you wouldn't believe, particularly if your wife maybe with long fake fingernails or extensions, whatever they call them, I don't know, gets in and out of the truck. Obviously, if your fingernail's an inch longer than your finger, you're gonna scrape this area. You know, it probably would be even better if it was a little bit higher, right? But you can imagine all of the scratches and things you're gonna get. And believe me, if you haven't seen it, take a look at your own vehicle. If you don't have this film in here, I'll bet you've got some scrapes and scratches right around the door handle area where you reach in. Pretty handy, very easy to do. You can find them anywhere. It's just basically like an applique, if you will. Sticks inside here. Anybody can do it. Mine have it on the front and the back. And of course, if you have little kids, you know they're scraping that every time they get in and out, right? And after all, they have fingernails too. Next up, and this is more of an aesthetic mod. I just think it looks good on the Tacoma. And I'm talking about on the rear tailgate where it says Tacoma are the tailgate letters. Very simple to do. Your truck may have even came with them. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. The dealership will call this, I think, part of a blackout package. Of course, you're going to pay a lot more money for these things if you buy them from the dealer. They're very easy to install. They're just stick-on. You peel off the back, make sure you clean the area. Stick them in the already positioned slots, if you will, for the name. And there's tons of different colors and things you can choose from. I recommend Tough Skins. There is a discount code below, by the way. They have all kinds of other stuff too. But I've used their products for years, and I gotta say, they've always been spot on, fit well, and hold up to the elements. Lastly, number 7, large or larger radio volume knob. You know, when I first got this truck, I was hoping, since Toyota seemed to go to a more massive style on their knobs and things, that they would do it on the radio too. But they did not. Instead, they gave us the old thin, sits real close to the radio knob. Now, unless you have petite fingers, it's kind of hard to locate and grab onto when you want it, right? I mean, look at the difference in size between what I have and what came with the truck. And the good thing is they still just pop right off. You see that little slot on the back? There's a matching slot below. It just slips on and pulls off, right? I actually have 2 of them because one of the trucks that I got these from, or 4 rather, had 2 different knobs on each side, or 1 on each side, I should say. So I've got a spare, but it's nice to be able to just grab this thing and do what you want to do. One of those simple things, I know, but pretty darn handy. Anyway, those are just 7 pretty simple mods. Not every mod for the Tacoma has to be complicated. You don't have to be a master mechanic to do any of these things. And pretty much they're all very inexpensive as well. I think the most expensive of the whole lot is probably the bed mat, I would say. Everything else is pretty darn cheap. Leave a comment. Let me know if you have some of this stuff. I'd be curious. Thanks for watching. Stay safe out there. Bye.